Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're looking for the dopest podcast on the planet, you found it. You're in the right spot. You're at ESPN.com's Heat Index Post Up podcast with your man, Michael Wallace, bringing you our inaugural edition of the podcast. And I had a chance to catch up with none other than Heat forward Chris Bosh for our first show. And as Bosh awaits his word, basically it's going to be an official word coming his way Thursday that he'll be an all-star reserve for the East squad, which means he'll be joining teammates LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. You know, like I said, Bosh is a guy that, frankly, he's one of my favorite guys to interview on this team because every time I talk to Chris, I learn something new about him. Just the way he thinks. He's a real cerebral guy on and off the court. His versatility is shown on and off the court with the way he lives his life as well as the way he plays his game. And we're not seeing him score the way he scored in Toronto. He's still not rebounding at the rate that anybody expected. And frankly, that also makes Chris one of the more frustrating players to cover because we see the size, we see the length, we see the athleticism, we see everything that should make him a dominant double-double type power forward in this league. But it just hasn't happened at that pace yet. And Bosh has admitted that it's been tough trying to make the adjustment to Miami, but he's sort of finding his stride a little bit more this season. We've seen his numbers take off when Dwayne Wade was out with his ankle injury and missed those 6 games. And now Bosh's numbers have come down just a little bit since Dwayne has been back. So, and we caught up with him about some of those things, some of those struggles, some of the things that made him the player that he is. Talked to him about who he patterns his game after, and it's probably going to surprise you a little bit. And obviously, you know, there's a hip hop element to this show. I'm an old school hip hop fanatic, so I even talked to Chris, a Dallas native, about his hip hop influences. And I'll give you a hint right now. This brother is just as willing to listen to Beethoven as he is to Biggie. So that tells you all you need to know about Chris Bosh in terms of how he lives his life and how he plays his game. So, you know, Bosh is another guy that he reminds me a lot of Eli Manning in a way. I covered Eli Manning for 3 years in college, and people used to always question whether if you took football away from Eli Manning, he'd probably still go along with his life and be just as happy finding something else to do because they didn't see that passion and that outward desire to be a dominant player. But when you saw him play on the football field on Saturdays then and on Sundays now, you see that this is a guy that doesn't get rattled, that cool, calm demeanor comes through in the clutch time and time again as he's just won his 2nd Super Bowl to pass Big Brother Peyton. And Chris reminds me of that, the demeanor-wise, in some ways as well. And in terms of you want to see him be more aggressive, you want to see him drive to the paint more and stop taking jumpers, you want to see him snatch rebounds and get 12 and 13 and 14 a game. But he is who he is. He's found ways to be effective in this league for the first 8-9 years of his career. So, you know, like I said, I had a chance to catch up with Chris as he awaited word from the NBA about his all-star selection, and he's looking forward to playing in Orlando. But more importantly, he's looking forward to putting an exclamation point on season 2 with the Miami Heat. Joining me on this week's edition of the Post Up Podcast is Miami Heat forward Chris Bosh. Chris, a couple years ago, you had a little fun with your all-star bid, made the commercial and everything. It was a great hit. This season, you're letting your play speak for itself. Just talk about what the difference has been in sort of doing it quietly this time around.
I was getting to be a few years ago now. I mean, it's crazy. But, you know, this year I've made constant strides to try to improve. You know, this team was put in unique situations early in the season. So, you know, I just wanted to do whatever it takes to win at the end of the day. That's what it's all about. I know I can get better every day, every single day, and that's how I try to approach every game. So, you know, it's worked out so far, but you know, I have big goals in mind for this team, and to do that, I have to play well.
Well, what does it mean for you to be an all-star? I mean, obviously the formality comes Thursday, and you've been an all-star in this league for several years now. How much pride do you take in that, and what does that mean for you?
I mean, I take a lot of pride. I think it's all about consistency. You know, just proving that you belong where you belong. Some people might feel that way if it's just 1 year and like, you know, he got lucky, you know, he was hurt. I mean, you know, to do it over and over, you know, for one, it's a dream come true because, you know, I've been dreaming of playing this game ever since I was a kid. But to actually be able to participate in what I watched as a kid, you know, it's a certain selective group. I mean, it's a great thing, and I never take it for granted.
You mentioned growing up, you know, practicing some of the moves that you've seen on NBA games and playoffs. Who do you pattern your game after?
Well, I think Michael Jordan influenced everybody in some kind of capacity. And for one, we didn't have cable, so the Bulls were always on during the summertime, in the playoffs. So we always watched them. I always remember all the finals games. Hakeem Olajuwon was huge. Kevin Garnett was huge, and Tim Duncan. So probably those four guys were the main four guys that really, I watched them, and I was like, especially KG, I was like, okay, I can do that. I'm like, damn, I'm skinny too. And he's really, look at him, he's bringing the ball up the floor, and he's shooting the J, and he's doing everything. I think I can do that, and I started doing it.
Have you ever had a chance to communicate that with him? I mean, is this a league where guys can't really say, hey, pattern my game after you, or is that something you can do to him?
I think he knows because, so many articles were written when I first came in Toronto and everything. But maybe we'll have that conversation on a personal level one day. But for now, we take competition very seriously.
He's a guy, obviously, Kevin Garnett is a guy versatile, one of the most versatile forwards that have ever played the game. Your stats this year show that you are having some career numbers with your versatility. You've had to make probably the biggest adjustment of the big three here. How have you sort of hit your stride now this season with that?
Well, I'm just proud of the fact that I came into a different role and a new role, and I'm able to still be effective. These are things that I never really did for my 7 years before I came here. But I'm proud of the fact that I was able to come in and kind of learn as quickly as possible. It hasn't been easy, and it continues to be difficult. But I expect it to be like that. I'm always trying to figure out how I can get better, and I know I'll be forever changing this league. So it's just about adapting to new situations constantly.
And there's a hip hop element to this podcast. I come in with hip hop, I end it with hip hop. I mean, you grew up in Dallas. Scarface and then we're in Houston, a little south of you. But who did you grow up listening to, and who do you listen to today?
I had big cousins from Houston, so Scarface, UGK, the Ghetto Boys. Of course, Tupac was in heavy rotation back then. Not too much Biggie, it was more Tupac.
Between them and how do you rank them two in your eyes?
They're both pioneers. Right. They're both like the Renaissance guys of hip-hop, It was an unfortunate turn the way it did, but those guys had the whole nation listening to all their music, and they're still playing it 17 years later, 16, 18 years later. It's crazy.
2 decades later, and I mean, you're one of the most versatile guys off the court too, with the things you're interested in, computers, the readings, and all of those kind of things. Who's in your iPod right now? Who do you listen to as you get prepared for the game, or is that even something you do?
I don't prepare too much for a game. I like it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in that day. I like to listen to music without words a lot because you can kind of paint your own picture, so sometimes jazz, classical, it's like a different feel because, if I'm in a thinking mood, it's like, all right, I don't really want somebody else to put words in my head right now because maybe I'm not feeling like that. Or I don't feel like searching for a song, thousands and thousands of songs of how I feel today. So I'm going to just put it on random in my classical section.
And lastly for me, obviously the way last season ended wasn't the way anybody expected it to. You had some emotion coming down this very same hallway here. If you can paint it to go differently this time around, other than just winning it all, how would you script this season finishes out for you personally as a player and as for this team?
Of course, I see ourselves winning it, but no matter what happens, just staying together with this team and just having a good fight and playing our best when it's time. That's all I really ask for. You can't ask, hey, we gotta win it, because it's kind of a weird thing. I just you have to take it one game at a time. So I figure if we play our best, if we play our best together, that's all I can ask for. If we do that, prepare the right way, everything will fall in place.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, man.
I'd just like to thank Chris. I also want to thank the Miami Heat's media relations staff, including Rob Wilson. And just like that, that's our first show. Thanks for joining us. I'm Michael Wallace. Peace.